Today on The Big Story, a unifying figure in an age of chaos. Indonesia President Jokowi has been named the Straits Times Asian of the Year 2019. Surprise and even shocked at Sasa's decision to leave Singapore. What made the beauty giant to fail? And lastly, the young Lions put up a good fight, but it wasn't enough to stay on in the SEA Games. Is all hope lost? It's 5:30 here in Singapore and you're watching The Big Story, where we'll discuss the top news of today and explain why it matters. I'm Haryanto Diman reporting to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. Congratulations to Indonesia's 7th and current president, Mr. Joko Widodo, who has been named the Straits Times Asian of the Year 2019. Better known as Jokowi, he was named for being a unifying figure in an age of chaos and disruption, navigating both domestic politics and global affairs. In 2014, he caught the world's attention, being the first person from outside Jakarta's elite circles to take the presidency of Southeast Asia's largest nation. This year, he retained his office with a handsome margin, but also spearheading the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific. Other previous winners included Singapore's founding Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and Chinese President Xi Jinping. Now, to talk more about Mr. Joko Widodo and Straits Times Asian of the Year, we have foreign editor Jeremy Au Yong. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hi, Haryanto.
Jeremy, as a start, tell us why was Mr. Joko chosen as the ST Asian of the Year 2019?
Okay, so maybe just a little bit of our process. So we have a panel that we debate this. This is the 8th time actually that we've named an Asian of the Year, and it's always a healthy debate. Yep. This year the vote was unanimous. Everybody agreed that President Joko Widodo of Indonesia, his achievements this year, and I think I can share this. He has actually been in conversations in one of our previous rounds before, but this year we thought he had an exceptional year. I mean, his achievements both at home and abroad were really set him apart from everybody else, and that's why the vote was unanimous. If we just look, two broad areas. Domestically, he had an election this year. Yep. He won that election by a larger margin than he did before against Prabowo, his challenger. It was a very divisive election, and Prabowo, just like he did at the previous election, contested the early projections of the results. Right up until the official results were announced. Yeah. And I thought Jokowi showed a very astute political hand on how he dealt with all this division. There was protests, there were demonstrations. He was, very careful not to declare victory early. And the moment he was sworn in, he started to pull the country together. Right. The moment all this division was over, he was named the president, he started to pull the country together. And I think that the most emblematic part of that is when he named his cabinet and he put Prabowo, this man who has challenged him twice, he named him defense minister. And this cabinet, and that wasn't even the only highlight in this cabinet. He also named Nadiem Makarim, who is the co-founder of Gojek, and somebody from the new economy. He named him, it's quite a young fellow, so he named him education minister. I think he got a lot of plaudits for that choice. Yep. Overseas, I would say the biggest achievement was this thing that we call the ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific. Yep. This was a document that ASEAN leaders adopted in Bangkok, I think in June. It's a complicated thing to do, international relations. So I think if I were to boil it down, let's just say the concept of the Indo-Pacific over the past few years has been something that different major powers have used to push their own interest. And ASEAN, which happens to sit smack in the middle of the Indo-Pacific, has been getting pulled from one side to the other. Yeah. So again, Indonesia was really the one that are trying to push through this ASEAN outlook, which is ASEAN's take on the Indo-Pacific. It allowed ASEAN to assert itself a little bit more, to seize the geopolitical narrative when it comes to Indo-Pacific and act in its own interests.
Right. And you see, we know that Mr. Joko is competent, right? No doubt about that, both domestically and internationally. And now that he's on his second term as president and his final term as well, what are some of the challenges you reckon that he will face, in the coming years?
Okay, I'm glad you asked me that, because I do want to be clear that this Asian of the Year award, it's not a recognition that your job is done. Yeah, this not that you're perfect. It's and Indonesia still has a lot of challenges. Jokowi has also identified some. I think for his second term, which will be his last term, at least 3 top ones come to mind. The first is he has to breathe some life into this sluggish economy.
Right.
Economies everywhere are under pressure right now, but this is a special challenge for him. Secondly, he needs to root out corruption, which remains to be a problem. It remains a problem in Indonesia. And the third one is tackling what seems to be of late the rise of religious extremism in Indonesia.
Right. Now, thank you, Jeremy, for coming on to share a bit more, of course, about our ST Asian of the Year 2019. Now, to read more on ST's citation on our Asian of the Year 2019, you can head over to straitstimes.com. Now, on to our second segment, surprise and even shock when Sasa announced that it will pull out of the Singapore market for both customers and employees. Now, in a move that is likely to affect 170 workers, the Hong Kong cosmetics giant had announced on Monday that it would shut down all 22 outlets. Shop staff told the Straits Times that they were not informed of the closure. They learned of the exit from social media posts and media reports. Sasa has said the 170 employees will be fully compensated according to Singapore's employment regulations. The decision to shut down came after Sasa's shops here recorded losses for 6 years in a row despite efforts to turn the business around. Now, so what went wrong that led Sasa down this path? We have journalist Amanda Chai to tell us more. Amanda, welcome. Now, Amanda, you spoke to some retail experts, right, on the possible reasons why Sasa had failed. What did they say? Did they see it coming?
Well, no one can predict whether a company is going to fail right from the start. And to be fair, Sasa did have its glory days, like in the early 2000s. I think the general consensus from retail experts was that Sasa has seen increasingly fierce competition over the years and it's kind of lost its competitive edge. It definitely was a pioneer in the beauty retail scene, and it paved the way for a lot of other multi-brand beauty hubs to enter the market, but it didn't manage to keep up. So Sasa's USP has always been bringing together discounted fragrances and cosmetics.
Right.
But over the years, with more brands creating their own e-commerce channels, they've been able to reach customers, end customers, more directly and offer discounts on their own. And I guess from personal observation, Sasa has kind of garnered a bit of a reputation or impression of perhaps being a fake retailer.
What do you mean? Yeah.
People always wonder how come the products are so cheap? Can it be real? Kind of thing. But actually, so what they do is they parallel import some items, which means they bring in authentic items, but without paying the intellectual property rights, which is legal in Singapore. So they're able to price it more competitively that way.
Right.
But then you can't really put a price on reputation and this.
So, Amanda, it seems that from what you have mentioned, competition seems very stiff, among the cosmetic retailers. How does Sasa then stack up to other giants, say for example Sephora, right? Are other retailers facing similar issues as well, or are they, just completely different? They've gone on a different path altogether.
So, everyone knows Sephora as today's beauty giant. They came into Singapore in 2008, but they've managed to stay relevant by bringing in some pretty big, reputable brands, immersive store displays, and their e-commerce is very seamless too. And then you also have, on the other side, you have drugstores, pharmacies like Watsons and Guardian, who have been really ramping up their beauty departments over the years. So everyone has been innovating in marketing, in creating store experiences, and adding loyalty programs for their customers. But Sasa has kind of maintained the same look and the same approach over the years. Yeah, I didn't do a lot of media outreach until only in recent years. So it did add a click and collect service this year where customers can pick up their orders in store, but then so do so many other retailers at this point, and adding that bit is just not enough anymore. And everyone's facing the same problems. It's just how fast you react or adapt to it.
Right. Yeah. So let's now focus on the unfortunate incident, of course, and Sasa as well. What is going to happen to the 170 employees?
So Sasa declined to further comment on that, but according to their original statement, they did say the 170 employees will be fully compensated according to Singapore's regulations.
Right. Now, thank you, Amanda, for coming on to share with us insights into what could have gone wrong with Sasa that contributed to its failure here in Singapore. Now, to read more on this, you can visit, of course, our website at straitstimes.com. And now let's move on to What's Trending, where Dylan will share with us what's buzzing in the internetverse. Over to you, Dylan.
Thanks, Haryanto. It's time for What's Trending. First up, do or do not, there is no try. The highly anticipated final installment to the Star Wars saga Rise of Skywalker is set to return to theatres on 19 December. In anticipation, Coca-Cola are releasing the world's first lighted OLED plastic bottles right here in Singapore. All you have to do is place your finger on the plastic wrap of the no-sugar Coke bottles to see the lightsaber light up. The bottles come in two designs featuring lightsabers in two different colours, blue or red. How do you get your hands on one? Well, take part in their galactic hunt, solve riddles, and you will know where you can purchase one of the 8,000 limited edition bottles. May the fizz be with you! Next up, oops! A video showing NATO leaders allegedly mocking Donald Trump has emerged. The footage shows Boris Johnson, Justin Trudeau and Emmanuel Macron at a function in Buckingham Palace where they appear to gossip about the American president's lengthy press conferences. Take a look. Trump did not take it well and called Trudeau two-faced when asked about the hot mic video. Trump has also abruptly cut his NATO trip short and returned to Washington earlier than expected. And finally, in SEA Games news, the famous Kua siblings continue to do Singapore proud with 4 SEA Games records and 4 goals. The youngest of the trio, Ting Wen, claimed victory in a record timing for the women's 200-meter butterfly. Sister Ting Wen too took gold for the 100-meter freestyle, but in a bittersweet moment was just shy of the Olympic A mark with a time of 54.74 seconds. Brother Cheng Wen, however, is on his way to Tokyo 2020 thanks to clocking a blistering 53.79 seconds for the 100-meter backstroke. Together with Joseph Schooling, Jonathan Tan and Darren Chua, Cheng Wen rounded off a fantastic night for Team Singapore with gold in the 4x200 freestyle relay. Well done, guys! That's all we have for What's Trending today. If you've seen a story you want to share, link it in the comment section below. Back to you, Haryanto.
Now, thanks, Dylan. Again, go Team Singapore. Now, still on sports, the Singapore Under-22 football team has ended its SEA Game campaign today with a win against Brunei. But it seems it isn't enough. The Young Lions had a goalless draw against Laos in the opening game in Manila, followed by 3 consecutive losses to Indonesia, Thailand and Vietnam. This sealed yet another disappointing SEA Games campaign for the Young Lions and marks the 3rd time in a row Singapore is exiting the Games at the group stage. Coach Fandi Ahmad said that talent is lacking in Singapore and the players are not able to commit full time. Now, as it stands, the match is still ongoing, but towards the end, and the score is 3-0 to Singapore against Brunei. Now, we have correspondent Sazli Abdulaziz as well in the studio to tell us what the future holds for the Young Lions. Welcome, Saz.
Hey, Ariando.
Saz, so Fandi's blunt comments have raised eyebrows. Is the team really underperforming, or is it a case of, they're just up against strong teams?
I think even the team's most ardent supporters will agree that they haven't been particularly good at these SEA Games. And this is especially knowing that they have shown in the past they are able to play much better. I think in June they even beat Thailand in the Malayan Cup, which is a exhibition sort of friendly tournament kind of quadrangular. Even though Thailand were without a couple of stars, but they did really well. They played a lot hard. They looked good going forward. They were resolute. This time in Manila, they seemed to lack cohesiveness. They couldn't really keep the ball.
Right.
There was no creativity. Tenacity wasn't always there. So there's overall very disappointing. Although it has to be said that the SEA Games football tournament is getting tougher, and Fandi is right to say the so-called smaller teams are catching up. Cambodia surprised everyone by beating Malaysia and making it to the semi-finals for the first time ever. Malaysia are out even despite being in the other group, which is supposedly easier than ours. So it's really hard to say, but I think everyone can agree that the Young Lions haven't played as well as they could.
Right. So now we've talked about Young Lions, of course, not playing well enough. Now let's focus on Fandi as a coach. No one is going to say Fandi is a bad coach, right? So where then do the problems lie?
I think the thing is, obviously Fandi, like you're right, he has a special place in the hearts of a lot of Singaporeans, and I think in this particular case, obviously, when results don't go, a team's way, people tend to look at the coaches. That's why in the EPL, managers get the sack.
Yeah.
But in this scenario, in our case, I think it's an inherited problem in a way, which, like you mentioned, is a third successive group stage exit. So it's not an isolated incident where we had bad tactics or something like that. It really is a case of our youth development system has sort of spluttered in recent years, and basically just not producing that caliber player which we hope and expect for. I think the last strong batch was players born in around 1990-92, which is Harun's batch, and after that we've had maybe one standout player in Safwan Barudin, but not really much else. So I think that's something that has to be fixed. It's a long-standing problem. It's not just the problem of the head coach or just one or two individuals. I think.
Right. It's a multitude of factors.
Yep.
It seems. So then, having said all that, what does the future hold for the Young Lions? Do you think they'll be able to pick themselves up again?
Yeah, well, we've spoken to some ex-players, some ex-national players, some coaches for a story that's coming out tomorrow. It's almost like a post-mortem looking at the under-22s and the Young Lions. And I think one interesting call that has been raised is whether the Young Lions should stay in the Singapore Premier League, which is the professional local league where they're playing. A lot of people are saying, it's been 6 years since we won a medal at the 2013 SEA Games. The Young Lion has run its course. It should be scrapped. The players should go to clubs and try to improve there. But it's, whatever it is, it's certainly something FAS has to sit down. The Football Association of Singapore has to sort of sit down, analyse and fix, and quite urgently, because you look at the next generation of SEA Games players in 2021. The next batch of players this year didn't really do so well in Asian qualifiers. They lost 11-0 to South Korea and 8-0 to Myanmar. So I mean, if these guys are going to step up and be our SEA Games team, we really need a lot of improvement in the next 18 to 24 months. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of inquiry happens in the FAS and what they'll do to fix the problems.
Right. Now, thank you, Sas, for that candid sharing. And of course, you mentioned earlier there's going to be an article that's out tomorrow that will
look into
a post-mortem of sorts into the team right there. And of course, you can catch that on our website at straitstimes.com. Now, there you have it, the top stories for today. For more news and videos, of course, you can visit our website. Once again, I'm Haryanto. Now, catch us tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.